Hey, Steve.
How's it going, Greg?
Good, man. You nearly just really threw me with the pre-chat, the pre-game chat.
Well, they would have been bad if we didn't have it because
I mean,
I
we
was
had a long discussion this weekend about bird brag. I mean, it was
yeah,
pretty exciting.
really exciting.
We decided that we can't hang out enough, or that we can't hang out so much together is what we decided.
Right,
The shows are better. It only hurts the fans. While we enjoy it and it improves our lives, it only hurts the fan experience.
right, because then stuff becomes too canned sometimes, and
Right.
we want it to be fresh and just off the cuff.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to Bird Brag, everybody. I'm Greg.
I'm Steve.
And if you're tuning in for the first time, you're noticing that it's season 2, episode 1. And part of our discussion this weekend led us to, we had an epiphany, really.
Really, it was an
Yeah,
epiphany.
honestly. And that was probably 6, 7 Miller Lights into the day that we had this discovery. Less?
Somewhere around there.
Less? More?
Probably maybe a couple less, maybe one
Okay.
less. Yeah.
I started pretty early, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
I had
That's true.
mimosa. I had some mimosas earlier in the day
You
too.
brunched, didn't you?
I brunched hard. Okay, so season 2. What we realized is that Bird Brag would be ideal if we followed the seasons, and so we just got out of spring. And while we're learning our trade, our trade and figuring it out, what we decided was that we are going to do a new season every season. I mean, that's pretty. I mean,
That's what a season is, right?
what's logic? What's not logical about that?
Especially since we're talking about nature, that's kind of how things go through the passage of the seasons, and
Right.
that's how we go.
So we're we just had the solstice. We're literally into summer. So we're literally starting season 2 with summer. Summer 2020. 2020, the weirdest year ever.
So far. It could get more normal.
So welcome to season 2. We're going to focus two things. One, we're going to focus on summer for our nature side of the show, Bird Brag. And we're also going to focus on summer for our and stuff. And so I had so much fun talking about golf on the last one. We're going to focus on golf on the second half of the show, and birdies. So birds and birdies.
And for the nature component, our theme is going to be the golden hour of summer. So everything is going to be related to gold or golden in some way.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. You really stepped it up. You really, Steve got real mad at me when I thought that we weren't starting season 2 today. So you guys know, he was thrown a little thrown. So the golden hour is what say it again. What is the theme of this season?
Golden. That's it. Yeah.
Gold.
Oh, you're freezing up.
Oh, gold. I was doing my Goldfinger impression. It's gold. All right. First, as we start every show, what you drinking, Steve?
So today, my wife got me beer again, and it's a real special one. It's got a little bit of a story behind it, but I don't know if you can see here. It's a collaboration, Bitburger and Sierra Nevada.
What?
And it's called Triple Hop Lager. It's actually brewed in Germany, but then it got imported here.
Oh,
and
wow.
so Licia bought it here, and it's really good. But the reason I think she got it is because we had some friends, really good friends, that lived in Germany for a while, and the area they lived, Bitburger was like their home brewery. So when we were over there, that's the beer they served in all the bars, and really kind of took a liking to it.
Oh, cool.
And so she saw this, and so she snapped it up.
Nice.
But I kind of found a downfall from the metric system here because
you get less? Are you getting less?
Yeah, it's like a third of a liter, so it's like 11.2 ounces.
Yeah,
see how small that can is? Look how big my hand is.
Well, you're a giant to begin with, but that is. I like the size of the can, to be honest with you. But it does kind of. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to it. Like, You get an extra beer in at the end of the night, maybe. You get to think so.
I could see that.
Yeah.
How about you, Greg?
Oh, you see, again, you're really on it. Yeah, nailed it. I think you're going to be jealous what I'm drinking. I have a Moose Drool. Do you know what Moose Drool is?
Yeah.
Brown ale, Big Sky Brewing Company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Missoula, Montana.
Nice.
I love giving these guys a shout out. And do you know that Alaskans love this stupid beer?
I didn't know that.
Oh my God. I don't know what the deal is, but there's a lot of connection between Montana and Alaskans.
Yeah.
Because they both got mental problems, but yeah, no, I enjoy this. So, all right, let's open these guys up.
Since they were small, I actually had part of one before the show. So, you're spilling, Greg.
Oh man, I was trying to wait for you. All right, cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Alicia's favorite part. Okay, since we're starting season 2, I ask you this every few episodes, but I think you should give a little background on yourself and set the stage for people of why they're listening to our podcast.
So I'm Steve, and I'm a wildlife biologist in the Sacramento area of Northern California.
The USA. Sacramento area of Northern California?
Well, just to specify where in Northern California, I guess.
I know.
Uh-huh. Is season 2
I really
like
threw you, huh?
Is
Start
season
over.
2 going to be like this?
Start over.
No. And I work at a small wildlife refuge that we manage for wildlife habitat. And we also do a lot of public outreach, and I really enjoy doing that. And so when you came up with the idea to do this podcast, I jumped all over it. And you're here to kind of help interpret it for the everyman that's not a wildlife biologist.
I am not a wildlife biologist. I'm Steve's drinking buddy, and we have a good time together, and he takes my shenanigans in stride. So yeah, I'm here to kind of help the conversation, keep it going, and ask some silly questions. And I often ask some silly questions. So let's get it going. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about the Gilded Flicker.
You know how much I get a tickle out of these names.
Yeah, this wasn't even the offbeat names. This is the AOU accepted name.
The Gilded Flicker.
Yeah.
All right. And Gilded, we have a little gold reference in there. Yeah, so that's nice.
Our gold
that's nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I like where that's going. All right. So as we always start, describe this guy to me. What are we talking about? I'm assuming you didn't say it wasn't. I'm assuming it's a bird.
Right. Well, I did say it was the AOU accepted name, so that's a clue that it's a bird. And flickers are a woodpecker, which we haven't even talked about a woodpecker in season 1. We went no woodpeckers, and I think woodpeckers are probably universally loved unless they're drilling in the side of someone's house, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that could be like the visual one. I think it was Warner Brothers who brought us Woody Woodpecker, right? And so everyone already automatically kind of likes woodpeckers in that way. So yeah, dig it. I didn't know, I already learned something. I didn't know a flicker was a type of woodpecker. So learning something right away. Cool. So set the stage. What does this guy look like?
So they're a pretty decent sized bird. They're a little bit bigger than a robin. They're maybe close to 30 centimeters. So 10, 11 inches. They have a 50 centimeter wingspan, so half a meter wingspan, and they weigh about 100 grams, a little more than 100 grams. So that's
what is that in Miller Lights?
It's a roughly a third of a Miller Lite. So
whoa,
yeah, 3 of these guys, and you got 1 Miller Lite.
That is way more substantial than I thought we would imagine a woodpecker being.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's a good sized bird, and they're really, to me, they're a super neat looking bird. Surprisingly, they are one of my favorites, the flickers.
Steve,
they can't all be your favorites.
Oh, I'll bring it up in a second, but I just noticed what T-shirt you're wearing. So we'll talk about that in a
Oh
second too.
yeah. We'll
Yeah.
get down there.
All right.
So they have, a woodpecker bill. It's maybe not quite as bulky as some other woodpeckers, but it is a long, slender bill. It's got a little bit of a decurve to it, so it curves down a little bit. For the most part, they're kind of gray and brown. They have a tan cap on the top of their head. The back of their wings and their back is kind of mottled black and brown, kind of stepped down almost like a ladder. And then on the front, they have some really intricate patterning. They have like a right below their neck, they have a black kind of oval marking, and below that they have all these black spots that just look like black paint dots that go all the way down their belly. And then the males, they have a red mailer stripe, which is like that mustache stripe, which the females don't have. And the reason they got their name, the Gilded Flicker, is because when they open up their wings and from underneath their tail, their primary feathers and their tail feathers have they're nice bright yellow, and so they look like they were dipped in gold, I guess. So they're gilded.
Gold. That's why they're gilded. Yeah. Dipped in gold. That's pretty bitchin'.
It is bitchin'.
I like it. So what about the naming entomology? Is there a something you can tell us about that?
I can't remember exactly the species name, but it's like Chryseoptis or something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of an interesting species because there's another flicker in the North America called the northern flicker. Mm-hmm. And this bird used to be, back in the pre-1960s, it was its own species. And then in the 1960s, it got lumped in with the northern flickers because they do occasionally hybridize with northern flickers where their range overlaps. But then in 1995, it got reverted back to its own species. Even though they do sometimes hybridize with the northern flickers where they overlap, it's rare enough that they felt that they still deserve to be their own species. And northern flickers, they're interesting too because they may be two different species, but where they overlap, they really hybridize. But there's in the western United States, there's a red shafted flicker, and in the eastern North America, there's a yellow shafted flicker. And then in the middle where they overlap, they're kind of a intergrade between the two. They're kind of orangey rather than yellow or red.
I mean, the sexiest bird brag yet.
Talking
about, oh yeah, flickers and shafts and gilded breasts and
feathers.
Oh, I mean, people don't even know what they're listening to right now. I think we're speaking in code.
Unless they heard the beginning, huh?
Oh, you could just tune in midway through. A lot of people do that with podcasts. All of a sudden they just jump 10 minutes in. It happens all the time. So let's talk about lifespan a little bit.
You're kind of I missed that. You broke up a little.
Okay. Let's talk about lifespan a little bit.
Okay. They're not super long lived, maybe 4 or 5 years. I think the oldest known record that they have for a wild bird is a little over 6 years old.
Okay.
So not super long lived. Not
super long. So they're only going to see Trump in his one-term presidency. A lot of these guys.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we're all hoping for that sort of lifespan. So habitat for this. So I'm interested and curious to learn about this because I don't know why woodpeckers peck. So this is it's like a limerick, right?
Yeah.
If woodpeckers, what's the?
But that's woodchucks, right?
Yeah, woodchuck. Like how much wood could a woodchuck? How much wood could a woodpeck peck if a woodpeck could peck wood? I did that.
Woodpeck all the wood he could peck. A woodpeck could peck wood.
So how much wood could a woodpeck peck?
These guys don't do a lot of that. They live in the desert. They have a pretty small range. So they're barely into southern Nevada, barely into southeastern California. the core of their range is kind of southwestern Arizona down into Mexico and Baja California. And
Interesting.
they actually are typically found, they're very, not all the time, but they're very closely associated with the giant cactus forests, like the saguaro cactus. And they actually make the reason they peck cactus wood is they create their nest cavities in saguaro cactus.
That was my question. Is that what a woodpecker's doing when it is doing that? Is it's typically trying to find a spot to make their nest?
A lot of the time. And then sometimes they will, they'll also, they like to forage in dead trees or trees that have, big bark. And so they'll be using their bill to pry off pieces of bark and try to get beetle larvae and things like that are inside the tree. And so a lot of times woodpeckers rely on kind of dead wood habitat for, because those trees are getting attacked by all kinds of insects. And so they're full of larvae and things like that. Okay. But this bird, they don't really forage like that. These gilded flickers typically forage on the ground. They eat we can get into that in a little bit, but they eat a lot of insects and fruits and seeds and stuff. But they drill these nest holes in the saguaro cacti. And it's interesting because when the cactus gets a hole drilled in it, it can dehydrate quickly. So as a defense against dehydration, it secretes a sap that hardens and it forms a kind of a structure around the injured area that they call it's waterproof structure, and they call it a saguaro boot. So when they drill these holes in them, then the cacti around that hole harden up and to protect the cactus from losing water.
So once the boot is made, the saguaro boot is made, will that same woodpecker go to that same spot? Will other woodpeckers use it? Or is it like, how long do they use it for? And do they abandon it? Like, what's the story?
I'm not sure if they use the same nest cavity year to year or not. But it wouldn't surprise me. I know the northern flickers, they'll dig roost holes and things like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if once they're done nesting, if they also roost in the cacti. So yeah.
Okay. That's pretty interesting. So, and I always I always think of saguaro cacti in Palm Springs, but really the saguaro is really more in New Mexico area, and it just happens to be up there. Do you know?
Yeah, I can't think of any saguaro in Palm Springs area.
Oh, really?
Unless they have some planted, but I don't think I'm not sure if they're native to that part of California.
There's a famous party hotel in Palm Springs called the Saguaro.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Maybe they just stole, just appropriating more culture. That's great. Well done.
Yeah, I think that's southwestern Arizona and out into Mexico is kind of the heart of their range, and that's where a lot of those forests are.
Okay. What else you got?
So they, like I said, they feed on the ground. They mostly eat insects. They eat a ton of ants. They'll stick that bill, instead of using it to pry up bark and things like that, they'll stick it into the ant holes and into, wood that's on the ground to get termites out of, and they'll use that bill to kind of probe into these holes and get insects out. And then they'll also eat fruits and seeds on the ground, but they typically eat things on the ground. And one interesting thing about them is if you're in their range and you have a bird feeder, they really like watermelon. So if you put watermelon out, you might have a good shot of getting the gilded flicker to come into your feeder.
Really? That's pretty cool. I like watermelon. I could dig it. It's not to like. Refreshing.
Yeah.
Not too
what about
sweet.
Where do you stand on grilled watermelon?
I know. No, I disagree with that. What about dehydrated watermelon?
I don't know if I've ever had that.
It's delicious.
Really?
What an oxymoron that is, huh?
Yeah.
Dehydrated watermelon. It gets kind of like you'd imagine styrofoamy, and it stays sweet. What's your take on grilled pineapple?
I love grilled pineapple.
Me too. Yeah,
good.
That's the correct answer. So what's your take on grilled watermelon?
It's fine, but I am not a huge watermelon fan. It's okay, but it's not something that I like crave or look forward to in general. So I could take it or leave it.
I have watermelon knowledge. Do you know why I have watermelon knowledge? Because I've done a lot of work for marketing for wine grapes,
Uh-huh.
and all those, not all of them, but a big, huge portion of, especially Lodi, was at the turn of the century, 18th to 19th, or the 19th to 20th century. Those were watermelon patches. And the
Hmm.
reason they were watermelon patches is because watermelons were so darn expensive because they were a delicacy. They
Oh.
were worth their weight in gold, sometimes quite literally. And it was, and so as you know, sweets and sugars and things started to come in, there weren't such a delicacy anymore. So
Huh.
Central Valley has a long history of watermelons. So
Cool.
what else you got? Let's get back on topic. Let's get back to the Gilded Flicker.
Sorry, I'm always taking us off topic.
Well, yeah. Oh, do you want me to get into our friends again? Don't get me started. I'll
Well,
talk. You'll get me really good. You'll get me going.
I think we're getting close to your favorite part of the show.
Okay.
So
All
I
right.
think,
Do
I
you
think
want
we
me
should,
to ask, or you want?
yeah, I always like to hear it from you.
All right. Let's talk clutch size.
Okay. So typically they'll lay 4 to 5 eggs
Okay.
that are 2.5 to 3 centimeters. So not real big, but inch or
Not
so.
yeah.
And they're white. They're just plain white since they're inside. They don't really need to be camouflaged or anything like
Mm-hmm,
that. And so when
mm-hmm.
they make that cavity in the saguaro, they don't put any lining or anything down. They just kind of excavate it out and put it in the bottom of the hole.
So and I'm imagining incorrectly. So I imagine these cacti being kind of hollow, and that they would have to build something or secure something, and they're not. There's something there for them to.
Yeah,
I've never cut through a cacti.
yeah, they're just kind of fleshy and watery all the way
Got it.
through.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it'd be kind of soft enough and nice enough that they could already just
yeah,
take that over.
yeah. And so they have a pretty quick incubation period. They only have to sit on the eggs for like 11 days or so, and then they hatch. And the young take 3 to 4 weeks before they leave the nest, and then they generally stay with the parents for a while, at least another month probably, and they teach them how to find food and stuff like that because in desert areas like that, their resources are usually pretty targeted. There's not like uniform resources throughout the desert, so they need to learn how to find that kind of stuff. And they usually only have one brood a year, um, it's not a huge breeding effort. Although if they are unsuccessful in their first attempt early enough, they will renest sometimes and try again.
Got it. You beat me to the punch. I was just about to ask you that. I was going to be good. All right. So what else we got?
So I guess the only other kind of fun fact I have, and it's probably really not that fun, but we had the European starling episode, and I don't know if you remember, we talked about one of their problems as a non-native species in North America is that they're a cavity nester, and so they compete with other birds for nest cavities. So fortunately, the gilded flicker seems to be able to hold its own against the European starling, and where they're together, the starlings don't typically affect the gilded flicker's breeding and using nest cavities at all. Yeah. So probably because they're a little bigger and they're just aggressive enough that they can keep them out.
Yeah. See, I guess these woodpeckers specifically, are a little bigger than I would have pictured in my mind because cartoons ruined me, and Woody Woodpecker was a little guy, and this guy's not a little guy.
No, he's pretty good size for a bird.
Huh.
There's some even bigger woodpeckers that someday we'll get into.
Oh, I know a couple of humongous woodpeckers. We won't get into those. We won't get into those guys.
Huh. Interesting.
All right. Well, I like these guys. Well, and it makes me long because we said, and it's a really good start to the summer season. I like this start for season 2. He's a good guy. Have you laid eyes on him? Have you been?
Not the gilded woodpecker, but I've seen tons of the very closely related northern flicker.
So you need to put this bird brag in your bird bag.
Definitely,
you have yet to do that.
They have been. I was looking at eBird today to kind of refine their range, and they have been seen occasionally just outside of Las Vegas. So it might be worth a trip kind of in that general area to look for them.
What's Las Vegas? What is that?
It's just this little town, all those little towns in Nevada. It's
Hmm.
just kind of a neat little town I found down there. I don't
Is
know.
it fun?
I'm gonna shoot. I mean, there's some like bird refuges and things like that outside and nature areas that are pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll check it out.
Yeah.
Well, good job. Uh-oh. Bird sound? We didn't do the sound.
Well, we got to do the sound. Yeah, let's do the sound, and then we also need to go into the kind of archaic names for this bird.
Oh, two of my favorites.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Greg, they can't all be your favorites.
two of my favorite topics. Yes.
Yeah, they can't all be your favorite topic.
I didn't. Yeah, you got me. Good one. All right. So let's hear what these guys sound like.
So I'm going to give you two of them, two different calls. So we'll play the first one. Well, three actually. This first one has two different calls that they have on there.
Okay.
So that's the first one.
Okay.
And then this one you hear a lot, especially in the winter. It's I think it's kind of like a contact call, just like, hey, I'm in the area, that kind of thing. But I really like this one.
So why do they have two calls?
They have several calls, but so birds have all kinds of different vocalizations for different reasons. Some of them are to attract mates. Some of them are to defend territories. Some of them are just, they call them contact calls. Like I think they're more typically used in the winter months when the birds are more likely to be together, or if it's maybe like a bird like quail that group up into these large coveys outside the breeding season. If they get separated, they kind of can find each other again.
Wow.
So yeah, there's different vocalizations for different reasons, and some of them we don't know why they do them, but
that you got me there. I didn't realize. Maybe I guess I could have guessed that there was different calls and different sounds, but I didn't realize they could be that was pretty radically different for those two. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool. All right. One of my other favorite topics, as you just said, let's talk some names.
So kind of a boring name. They were at one time called the common flicker.
Okay.
That's no good.
No, well, that one's a layup. That one's okay.
And they're also called the wake up or the wick up.
Wait a minute. Sure. Slow down. That could be, you're not sure which one? Or
no, they've been called both, but I'm kind of wondering if the wick up is some kind of like Southwestern Arizona slang term for,
wick up, dummy.
Yeah. Maybe someone who hadn't seen other people for several months or something like that.
Wake up, Licia.
Yeah, something like that. And then the last one I have, and I assume it's related to one of the calls, is the yucker.
You get me every time. The yucker. Can you explain that one at all to me?
Like I said, I think it's maybe related to that call, but the call doesn't really sound like yuck or anything like that to me. So
you're pretty critical of the name and the calls. Like if it didn't sound like that to me. You've had that comment a few times. I don't really get that.
Sometimes it throws me when I read something and it's wrong.
Well, all right. The wick up. I'm gonna wake up. Wake up, Licia, do them dishes.
Give me a Bitburger.
Go get me a Bitburger. Go get me a longboard. Wake up, Licia. All right. Well, you did it. Wait,
did you want me to pan down?
So we have two things. One, let's first start with Insta. You got to follow us on Insta. Easy to find, Bird Brag. And then any questions, ideas, birdbrag@gmail.com. But
and
we
Twitter.
have and the Twitter, as you like to call it, the Twitter.
Yeah, the Twitter box.
The Twitter box. So get us on the Twitter box. But we have swag, people. We have merch that you could get, and if you're interested, you need it. So show us your T-shirt, Steve. And he's not standing up. He's moving his computer down. Yeah. No. So for people on the YouTube get to see it, explain the unique Bird Brag tee that you're wearing right now.
So this is in our Zazzle store, but we have a lot of Korean listeners, and so our art department kind of was developing logos and made a Korean language one in the Hangul alphabet, and we have
it
it on
came out
pretty
accurate. It was kind of a guess, a little bit, and it came out correct.
We had a source that said it was pretty good translation.
Pretty close. I think one of the coolest things, I tell this story all the time, is Bird Brag. We got bird right, but brag was closely related to the word love.
Well, I think what it was is, you see, and this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but you see where the bird cage is.
Yeah.
I think if this character right here doesn't have that line on there, I think that's what maybe he thought it was. And so, because he thought maybe that was part of the bird cage. And so I think without that thing on there, then did he say love? Was that what it was?
It was love.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was cool. So, so if anyone's interested, email us. We'll send you a link. We'll send you the link of where to get it. And we'd also do some special orders in that, but we have a lot of different cool stuff, including masks. We have masks, people, that we could get you and get a hold of, and we'll give you a good deal on that. So, all right. So we head into the and stuff.
Yeah, let's get there. I can't wait.
You hear that?
Oh, Mick. Good job, Mick.
Yeah, he did it. There it goes. It's only about 3 minutes of the show now. All right. So Bird Brag, we're talking, we just talked about birds. Now we're going to talk about birdies. And I mentioned it on the first time we did golf and birdies, but I'm going to do, which was Spring Hills, one of my favorite courses of all time. But we're going to talk about another Central Valley course that is one of, I mean, you could arguably one of the two most famous golf courses in the world. It's Pebble Beach. And next to St. Andrews would be, I think, almost equal there. So little history, Pebble Beach, the course has been around since 1919, which is kind of amazing. So they just celebrated the century, had the US Open again last year. And the hole that I specifically want to talk about that I mentioned before was, I mean, they have every hole, every par 3 is pretty amazing there. But number 5 was redesigned by Jack Nicklaus and put on the water, and 17 has so much history with Tom Watson. But my favorite hole on the course is number 3, which is the smallest hole on the PGA Tour. It's 100 yards at the longest, and sometimes plays as short as 85 or 90, but straight downhill, straight into the water. Literally the backdrop is the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is on the left side, the right side, and the back side. It's almost like an island green, for all you can imagine. And it's a tiny little baby shot that's right into the wind. And most people hit usually maximum a pitching wedge, but a lot of people hit sand wedges and little wedges and baby wedges in there. But one of the most iconic shots ever was in 1972. Why am I losing it right here? Hold on.
That was a good year.
It was good. It was, hold on. I can't believe I just lost it. Yes, it was 72. And the wind was blowing so hard and right in the face during the US Open that year, the Jack Nicklaus, he didn't hit a 9-iron or an 8-iron or a 7-iron. He hit a 1-iron. The wind was blowing so hard, he had to hit a 1-iron.
And 100 yards.
Yeah, for 100 yards. And my story is going to be similar to this. And his shot hit the flagstick from 100 yards straight into the wind. And it came to rest right next to the cup. So my story on this hole was I'm lucky enough that I've been able to do work with Pebble Beach over the years, and just some wonderful people there. And they invited me to their Christmas tournament. And the first year we played in it, it was about a week and a half before Christmas. And this was about 15 years ago. And the first year I played in it, it was 80 degrees that day in December. It was unbelievably beautiful. I got sunburnt. It was just fun. And I ended up birdieing that hole. I birdied the hole before it, number 6, par 5 straight uphill, and then birdieing that, and then shooting even par in the front, shooting a 36 on the front. It was just like amazing. It was just so fun. But so we had so much fun that we're like, oh, we got to play in this again. We got to play in this tournament again. Well, the next year, the weather was so bad and raining so hard and wind was blowing so hard that we literally were getting breakfast before we played the tournament. And we were sitting in Stillwater restaurant right above the 18th hole. The waves were so big and crashing over the 18th green. Well, when the salt water is crashing over that, the salt water just kills the grass. So imagine, if you will, pouring 40-mile-an-hour winds, and there's a guy in a full yellow rain suit watering the greens with a big hose, like fire hose.
You keep the salt off it?
Correct. To keep the water. So that was his job all day long, was to sit and water the 18th green with fresh water with a fire hose. It's like out of a movie. If you wrote the scene, people would be like, no, I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Like Dum-Dums, the rain stops and we're like, oh, we got to get out there. We're going to play. We're going to go play this. We're going to play. And we got through the first 4 holes, and we get to the 5th hole, which is another par 3. And my club slipped out of my hand, and Charles Schwab's house he has a house on the left side, and it helicoptered towards his house. And I'm like, no. And luckily it just hung up, and he has an electric fence to keep all the riffraff out. Oh, and it hung up just before that. I mean, and now it's pouring and it's raining. And we get up to the 7th hole, and one of the guys in our group is playing out of his mind. He's like even par. And he's like, I got to keep playing. So we get to the 7th hole, and I pull out a 3-iron. The wind is blowing so hard. I'm like, I got it. And I'm choking down and kind of holding it so that I could hold like below my grip so it doesn't slip out of my hand again. And I hit it and I knuckle it, and it goes, it sails right at it and lands right on the green. And I'm pumped. I'm like, I have a birdie putt. This is going to be awesome. And of course I 3-putt it. I don't even get a par that I could say I got a par on it. But the guy who we were playing with played the hole so bad. After he was playing even par, he like dumped one in the water in the ocean. We just quit. We're like, and we just went right to the tap room, which is another iconic watering hole, and just drank ourselves silly for the rest of the day.
Well, that's a good day.
But he's back here. So that hole is amazing. If you've never seen it, Google it, 7th hole Pebble Beach, and you'll just be amazed by the look of it. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, of the back-to-back Christmas tournaments at Pebble Beach. All right, Steve, what did we learn today? So we learned that the gilded flicker is not something you should type into YouPorn. It's a woodpecker, although you might type woodpecker into YouPorn search and see what happens.
Not at work.
They're not saying it. Yeah, maybe not too safe for work. They're 100 grams, and 100 grams equals that it would take 3 of them to make a Miller Lite.
Thereabouts.
There's a red mailer stripe on these guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
On the males.
That's I'm assuming that's why. Is it mailer, M-A-I-L-E-R, or M-A-L-E-R?
M-A-L-A-R.
Mailer stripe. Okay. All right. I'll buy into that. There's northern flickers, but we didn't talk about northern flickers today.
No, but if we were talking about this bird in the 60s, it would have been the northern flicker.
True dat. Imagine 50 years from now, 60 years from now, what they'll be correcting of our shows.
Who knows?
Right.
It'll be a good historical record, though.
The Saguaro boot is something that I do in Vegas on Sunday mornings, but it's also the hole in the cactus.
You broke me.
Yeah, gotcha. I got you there. The clutch size, 4 to 5 eggs, boring eggs, white eggs, but not a decent size.
Yeah.
2.5 centimeters, 3 centimeters, inch big eggs.
Yeah.
But it can't feel good to push that guy out. Then the common names: common flicker, the wake up,
Wake up.
the yucker, and the Licia. It's also now called the Licia. Wake up. Oh man. Well, I think we did it.
Yeah. It's gonna be sad to see this one go.
Yeah, this is good. Season 2, episode 1. We have a new theme, new season in 2 ways. Double new season. I mean that in 2 ways. We have a new season of Bird Brag, and we're celebrating a new season here in the Northern Hemisphere, summer in the Northern Hemisphere. All right, man.
All right.
I enjoyed it again. Once again, learned a lot.
Well, have a good evening, Greg.
All right, man. I'll see you soon. Do you hear that? Taking us out. Good old truck. See you, bud.
Peace.